Hey, I'm James from Smoky Dad Barbecue, and today we are putting a brand new spin on my favorite holiday style prime rib roast. Last year, we did a couple things that are an absolute game changer when it comes to making an amazing holiday prime rib roast, and that was injecting it with our homemade beef tallow that we infused with rosemary, garlic, and thyme. The other thing that we did is we made a cheater creme fraiche sauce that really set it apart. But ever since I did that video, you guys have been asking, James, why don't we do one on the JoeTisserie? Now, I avoided the JoeTisserie in the past for prime rib because one of the challenges is if we insert a spit all the way through our prime rib roast, we go for those nice hero slices, we have a big hole in the middle. But now that Kamado Joe has come out with the brand new JoeTisserie basket kit, I think this is going to give us the ability to hold our roast in place and skip the massive hole that we get in the middle of our prime rib roast. I can't wait to share that method with you. This is going to be a masterclass in salt, fat, acid, heat. Everything is coming together. Salt, we're going to do the overnight dry brine. I'm going to share my homemade salt, pepper, garlic recipe with a mix of kosher salt as well as with Lowry's, or if you can't find Lowry's, how to make it yourself. For our fat, we're going to make our homemade beef tallow again, and once again infuse that with rosemary, garlic, and thyme so that we get that aromatic smell, flavor, as well as just the lushness from the fat. For acid, we're going to add some red wine vinegar into our cheater creme fraiche sauce that we can pull together in about 5 minutes. It comes together really quick, and it's just going to add a bit of a board sauce or a plate, if you depending how you want to serve it, that really brings all the holiday theme and elements together. And for heat, nothing less than live fire coal cooking. And I've just had a blast with the JoeTisserie on this. I've done some beef ribs and some other things, and the live fire, it just adds that extra element as the fat starts to render, fall onto those coals, and it comes back and infuses in a wonderful aroma. The other thing we're going to stick with last year's plan is our herb smoke bombs. It's really easy to over smoke something like prime rib, but by adding a couple herb smoke bombs, we're going to get that fresh aromatic smell, which is just wafting towards me now, and it smells absolutely amazing. But it's bright, it's fresh, it still has a hint of smoke without overpowering it. So without further ado, let me take you back a little bit earlier when we start to prep our prime rib to get it on the grill. Okay, as you can see, our prime rib roast has already dry brined overnight in the refrigerator. That's why it's got that nice dark color. I'll put a link down to the recipe below. It's just salt, pepper, garlic. So using my pepper cannon, ground up some fresh pepper, and the salt is a mix of Diamond Crystal kosher salt along with Lowry's, but this is not regular Lowry's. I also made my own, so I'll put a link down to that so you can see that rub recipe. And there's actually a complete video I have on rubs that'll give you 3 other rubs that I love using, but today it's just salt, pepper, garlic, because what we're going to do, we're going to infuse this with beef tallow. But this is no ordinary beef tallow. This is beef tallow is infused with garlic, rosemary, and thyme, and I'm a huge fan of that versus just buying some of this off the shelf stuff. I'm not going to use that today because I think for less money this tastes better. And you can make it either out of leftover trimmings from your brisket, or if you go to your butcher like mine sells, they sometimes call it suet, which is just ground up fat. It comes for pennies to the pound, and you can render that down, add in some rosemary, thyme, strain it off, put it in a jar. It'll go white, and you can keep this in your refrigerator up for a month. So that's what we're going to use today, since that's going to give us our rosemary, garlic, and thyme flavors. Because if we were to sprinkle these on the outside and then cook on the rotisserie, they tend to burn. But by injecting them, we get that flavor without any risk of burning. And then for smoke, I've got a little bit more rosemary and thyme that we'll add in. I'll just put this on screen as well, how to make that. I actually made up an extra batch on my solo stove while we have this on the rotisserie. So take it fast forward while we get our meat injector loaded up here and start to inject some of this beef tallow into our prime rib. Okay, that looks good. Let's get our JoeTisserie basket. Just gonna pop out the flat tabs. In fact, I might even see if I can use one flat tab on the bottom in the maximum position, since we're a little flat, and then use the curved basket here for the top. Let's see how we do for fitment. Looks good. And slide this down. Okay, that looks good. I don't want it sliding all over the place, but it's going to be spinning this way, and that actually looks like it's locked in place really well. So let's get the rest of our JoeTisserie accessory attachment here. Lock it in, And I think we are ready. Let's get a meter probe. I want to try and avoid touching the metal, but I'm going to go right down here towards the middle of our ribeye roast, avoiding the rib cap here. Past the line. I think we are ready to go. This looks good.
Uh-oh.
Okay, time for a new game plan. I was just getting our rosemary, sage, and everything prepped, and I heard a loud bang come from inside of our Big Joe, and that's never a good sign. And so when I opened up the grill, our prime rib roast was sitting on the charcoal basket, and the basket had come undone. And so what I've quickly learned here is that these spring-loaded tabs that work great for holding something as light as chicken wings, for whatever reason, are not staying locked in the tabs. I tried it a second time, and I dropped it into the coals a second time. So I wanted to use the basket to avoid having the skewer all the way through, but I need to go inside and can't keep an eye on this, and I'm worried it's going to fall a third time, and I'm already starting to get a little bit of burning on the fat cap from dropping it twice. So let me go grab the proper skewer. We're going to go back to the JoeTisserie proper, clean up our basket, and save it for things like chicken wings. So the damage doesn't look too bad, but that's definitely not something we want to keep happening. So re-glove up here. So we're going to go back to the traditional way of doing this. I'll reinsert the meter probe once I know where our spit is going. But to do that, what I like to do is sort of run right along the bottom of the bones and try and center our roast, and try and sort of not be going right through the middle here. We could do the other way where we put our spit all the way through, but we're going to get a bit of an oblong shape. So when I've done it that way, we get really overdone sort of on the outside and the inside for a medium rare portion of our prime rib here. I found we get a much more even medium rare when we're rotating this way, so we have the bottom bones protecting like a bit of nature's heat shield for half the time, and then we're exposing the fat cap, and sort of that cooks far more evenly. So that's what we're going to do. Let's insert our spit here, running right along the bones, and I'm going to just hold up the roast so that, again, we can kind of control the shape, and out the other side. So that is pretty close to the bottom. Grab our forks, and this, I promise, is a tried and tested and true method. We should be done with our failure here. It's a good idea, though. No hole through the middle of the rib. Who would have thought? There we go. All right. I'll meet you back over. We'll tighten these tongs once we slide it to approximately the middle of the grill. Okay, second verse. Hopefully much better than the first. Let me grab our meter probe and see if we can't find the same hole that we were in earlier, just taking care not to line up with hitting the spit in the middle, otherwise that'll give us a bad reading. Turn it back on, keep on cooking. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is make up our herb smoke bombs. For something like prime rib or even poultry, this is the same thing I do with turkey, is it can be really easy to over smoke things, but something that adds a really nice holiday flavor is using fresh herbs. Because these are damp, they have some humidity in them, they'll actually last a while, and they'll impart some smoke, but it won't overwhelm you or your guests. So to do that, I just have some rosemary, sage, and some fresh thyme. We'll get a little bit of butcher's twine out here and just tie these into 2 bundles. Take you fast forward while I do that, and then when we come back, the second thing we're going to make up is our cheddar creme fraiche sauce. Okay, these look great. Let's go add one of them to the fire. All right, things are going much better with the traditional JoeTisserie. And so all I'm going to do is just take one of these bundles and bury it back down here in the coals. If you want, you can even grab your ash tool and just make sure that that's sitting right down in where we've got some live fire. And those will start to put off some fresh smoke. We're going to add 2. So this is in the first 30 minutes. We'll let that go about 30 minutes. Should be completely burned. And then we'll grab our second aromatic smoke bomb and we'll add that in. And already, oh my gosh, there's got to be a way to share the aromas that are coming out of here. Between our prime rib, some of that beef tallow that we've created falling down, hitting the coals, to now what we've just added immediately wakes up and it smells amazing. But I'm gonna close the dome, let that keep cooking. Let's go make our cheater creme fraiche sauce. Okay, so now that we've got our first smoke bomb on, we can get to work on making a cheater creme fraiche. I say cheater since we're just going to use sour cream. So this is 14%, 18%. I find the 14% is a little bit too thin. The 18% is a little bit too thick. If we were just to make this up and let it sit out on the counter overnight, we'd get the perfect consistency. But for a couple bucks and 5 minutes, we can pull together something that tastes 90% as good. So I'm just going to add in a big dollop of regular sour cream, a big dollop of 18% or sort of extra thick sour cream. We'll add in some fresh cracked black pepper along with, this is Malden's smoked sea salt. Got a little bit of red wine vinegar, and then to your family's taste preferences, this is extra hot, but horseradish as well as garlic. We're also going to dice up really fine so that we can release the oils from sage and incorporate this all together. I'll take you fast forward, we'll check how the flavors came together, and if that's ready, we'll just let that hang out for an hour or so while our prime rib is cooking along. Okay, we have all the leaves off our sage. I'll just save the stems as we can throw that into our fire and still get a little bit of that. And then for the sage, I find it easiest if we just sort of roll this up tight into a little bit of a bundle, make it a little bit easier, and we can just run our knife right along and catch more of that in one pass. And I'm taking care here to slide versus to press and chop. I don't want to crush. I want to really just make sure I release those oils and don't damage the sage, because that's really what's going to help impart that flavor once we add this into our creme fraiche. All right, back to fast forward now. Okay, that looks good. Let's give it a taste. That is almost there. A little bit more horseradish and this is ready. So we'll just let this sit in the refrigerator for about an hour while our prime rib cooks. So let me go over the game plan for today's cook. So we want to do this as slow as possible. So by having our vents down to a pinky down low and 1/4 of an inch inside from the top line up top, we want to hold about 260 to 270 degrees Fahrenheit. This, for something like prime rib, but it works on steaks as well. There's two ways that we can render fat. It's either the temperature or the time, but by a nice, slow, gentle heat, we are really going to render that fat. So we're not going to get any negative chew, but it's really going to be a nice sort of caramelized candy texture and really, really pleasant mouthfeel. So we're going to achieve that by going for about 2 hours at 270 degrees. When we start to get close to our internal temperature, I set it 114, which is a little bit lower than what we want. We want to finish right around 120 degrees, but that is a reminder just so I can come out and adjust the temperature. We can open the vents up, even open the dome all the way, and start to let those flames build up so we can get a bit of a finishing crust on the outside. After that, we'll let it rest for about 15-20 minutes until we see that temperature starting to come back down, and we'll be ready to slice it and dive in for our taste test. Okay, we are 2 hours later, and I just got an alert from the meter that our prime rib roast has reached, is about to reach the 114 degree internal temperature that we set. So let me bring you nice and close. We'll take a look at it. Start to get our dome open here, open our vents. Oh my God, the smell and the aroma. Oh, you got to see this thing. Once that smoke clears out, let me bring you nice and close. But we could start to work on building our outer crust. Okay, we've had our dome open for 10 minutes. And the outside of our prime rib roast is looking amazing. I've left the meter in, even though we're getting some live fire flames here that's coming up, it's still only reading an ambient temperature of about 316 degrees Fahrenheit. Because again, as it's spinning, it's getting exposed to the nice cool air out here. And since it has a maximum temperature of 500, it's not going anywhere near that. That's allowing me to keep track of our prime rib roast, which has now reached 118 degrees Fahrenheit. So I think this is ready to come off and have a rest. And even though we started with a little bit of a near failure with our prime rib roast falling out of the basket into the fire, this does open up an option. This is probably the same for the meter where we get away with the temperature, but the JoeTisserie basket has a limitation of 500 degrees Fahrenheit, and the traditional JoeTisserie rod, there is no such limitation. So we can just let the flames fly and not worry about any damage. So maybe let's try to find a blessing in disguise here, but this has worked out fantastic. And if this tastes anywhere half as good as it looks, we are in for a treat. So let me bring it nice and close. We'll get it off and let this rest. Oh, that is a thing of beauty. Let's turn off our JoeTisserie here. Lovely. Let's get that over here, let it rest. I'll rejoin you in about 10 minutes or so when we're ready for our taste test. All right, this looks amazing. It's been 10 minutes, it's rested. I am trying to go quick, as you can tell if you're seeing my breath. It's sub-zero temperatures out here, so our fat is starting to firm up on the board. So I want to get this inside for our dinner before it gets too cold, but we of course are not going to skip the best part here, the taste test. So let's get our prime rib roast off the bone and get a couple slices. Perfect, that looks good. Let's go here, cut her open, money shot. I know it's dark and the camera's maybe not showing that, but this is just running with juices. Perfect medium rare. Let's get a small slice out of here so we can do our taste test. And I'm going to push those back together to try and retain as much heat while we are out here. Oh, so good. Got a little bit of our sauce I'll add to one of these pieces so we can try one with and without. This looks and smells amazing. So I'm going to start with a piece here without our sauce. See how we did? Oh my word. It doesn't need the sauce, but I'm tasting already that rosemary thyme. So whether that's from the beef tallow infused with it, or the garlic, or the herb smoke bomb that we added, this is holiday in a bite. I can't wait. Let's try the sauce. Sauce is worth it. Everything about this is amazing. Like 10 out of 10 is not a high enough score for how awesome this is. So everything from the rotisserie, this texture, kind of like, not really crackling, but I guess we can call it that, from the fat cap rendering up top to the smoke coming back up from the JoeTisserie and the live coals, the herb smoke bombs, and this sauce, this is ridiculous. So our total cook time was 2 hours. For our reverse sear, about 20 minutes with the vents wide open, and then time for rest. So I'd budget about a 3-hour cook for this, which is kind of an extra large 2-bone prime rib roast. If you're going much larger than that, maybe give yourself a little bit of extra time accordingly. But this is stunning. I'm going to get it in before it cools off too much and before I cool off too much. I hope you really enjoyed this cooking. You give it a try for your friends and family this holiday. That's it for today, though. I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue signing off. And remember, don't be afraid to fire it up. Oh, yeah. This is so good. Oh, my word. Mmm.